want to talk to you about how medicine is changing. Medicine is changing a lot, okay, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. It's becoming a big data field. It used to be a physical field, and now it is becoming more of an informatics field. So, in the last 60 years, it has changed dramatically. I can remember that doctors used to make decisions based on very limited data and did not have a lot of data about a patient. They had a little bit of data, and they would make an inference, in fact. Now they have too much data. Doctors now have much too much data to deal with, and it's a big problem. I can tell you I have a grandson who was born 2 years ago, and as he emerged from the womb, as he was born, he had 2 gigabytes in his electronic medical record already, because he had been genetically sequenced already. Okay? So you can't imagine a doctor who could consume 2 gigabytes of information as a baby is being born. When I saw a pediatrician in 1957, he would take my temperature, he'd look in my mouth and look in my ears and things like that, and he'd make a diagnosis basically as an inference. He would say you have a flu or you have the cold or something like that, but he had very few bytes of information, maybe a few hundred bytes of information, not very much. Okay? What I want to talk about today is what makes us all different. Okay? And I'm going to start off by talking about Albert Einstein. Okay? Here's a famous man. He weighed about 150 pounds. He was made of, by mass, 97 pounds of oxygen, 27 pounds of carbon, 14 pounds of hydrogen, nitrogen, 4.8 pounds, and then some more other things, but the rest of it was only 2 pounds. Basically, he was made of those things. Now, I want you to watch those numbers, because I'm now going to change the slide, but the numbers are going to stay the same. It turns out a dog is exactly the same. A dog has exactly the same atoms in it. What makes a dog different from a human is they're all the same, basically in mass and the number of atoms, they're all the same. What makes them different is how those atoms are organized. What's connected to what? What is associated with what? How they pass around energy. That's what makes a human being different from a dog or anything else. This is information. So in effect, what it means is every human being is a pile of information. We're all the same physically, but it's not what we're made of, it's how it's put together that makes us different. We have 100 trillion cells in the average human body. 100 trillion cells. And each one of those cells has 3.1 billion base pairs. We're talking very big numbers here, okay? There's also an epigenome, which is the methylation patterns on the outside of the genome that turns things up or down or on or off. There's a microbiome, which is all the bacteria that are in your body. There are immune cells, there are the virome, the communicome, the proteome. These are all part of information inside your body. And what's interesting is the body, the 100 trillion grows a little bit as you grow. It gets bigger as you get bigger. As an adult, you're 100 trillion. Maybe as a child, you're only 5 trillion or something like that. And the genome is fairly stable, but a lot of these things are changing. In some cases, on a daily basis, they're changing. So not only are you a pile of information, but you're a pile of information that's different on Tuesday than it is on Thursday in some cases. If you went to a Thai restaurant, you probably have a different microbiome than you had before you went there. Okay? So that's the thing. We are all basically a changing form of information as well. This is just humorous. Doctor and physician are outdated terms. I'm your biological tech support specialist. Okay? It's all code in the end. The genome, for example, computer code is zeros and ones. It's binary. The genetics code is A's, C's, T's, and G's. It's quaternary, but it's basically the same thing. It's information. I'm not sure if you know this, but a human cell is approximately 6 millionths of a meter in diameter, a single cell. But if you take the genome that's in the cell and stretch it out, it's 6.5 feet long. So how do you fold a genome into a little tiny cell that big? Okay? It's all information. So today, a doctor has less time per patient than he had 25 years ago, 60 years ago for sure. He has a gigantic electronic medical record now that he has to consume. He has potentially many digital images that have been taken over time, and these digital images are all gigantic as well. If you have an MRI scan 10 years ago, that's a couple of gigabytes of information. Soon we're going to have the whole genome for every patient. I've been genetically sequenced 3 times, okay? Fortunately, I got the same answer each time, okay? But the fact is, soon, the genome will be in our electronic medical records. It is already in my grandson's electronic medical record. He was born with his genome already done, okay? So it's going to become standard operating procedure in medicine. And then there's the epigenomes, the microbiomes, the nucleomes. The nucleome is how it folds together. The immunicome, the communicome, the proteome. There are a whole bunch of things. These are all going to be part of your electronic medical record, and in some cases they're going to be changing. And maybe your iPhone will be keeping track of that and updating your EMR. Who knows? Okay. Every patient is now recognized by doctors as being unique. And your disease is unique, and your cancer is unique, and the treatment that's right for your cancer is unique. And that's a real challenge. It's personalized medicine. It's a big realization. We're all slightly different, in effect, in a small way. Every individual needs a custom drug or treatment now. Every cancer is different, in effect, because it's a different set of things that have been mutated in some way or another. Determining what that targeting is about is a big data field. Doctors, when I was in college, pre-med students, they were test tube people, they were pipette people, they did liquid chemistry. Now, doctors spend all their time typing. And in fact, I have a doctor now in Palo Alto who uses a Google Glass that records everything that's happening with me, and that's being automatically put into my electronic medical record. But in effect, it's all digital now. And the doctor, when he comes to see me for an annual physical, he can't possibly go through that whole electronic medical record and see what's important. There's gigabytes of information in there. There's multiple images and things of that sort. So one of the opportunities of this is that there's vast data mining capabilities. We can start looking at these data sets for very large groups of people and finding patterns, discovering things we never knew. I'm going to make one up, which I think is silly, but if we bake beans a lot, for example, you may be more likely to get a certain kind of cancer, and they can actually predict that. We're going to find a lot of very interesting things as we start getting all these electronic medical records together and start looking at 100 million people with those electronic medical records. We're going to find correlations, things that are unexpected, completely unexpected, okay? So we're entering a very interesting time right now. And doctors are going to need help. They can't possibly consume this information. So where's it all going? Well, one of the things I think is, since the doctor is swamped with information, artificial intelligence is coming. I'm seeing many startups now that are using artificial intelligence to interpret images, to interpret genomes, to analyze tumor samples, to analyze blood samples. I'm seeing artificial intelligence all over the place right now. And it's because the data is so huge, the doctor can't consume it. So what's going to happen is it's going to basically tell the doctor what's important and what's not. The doctor's going to need an AI to help him, okay? I think this is one of the interesting things is we for a millennia, we've been leveraging evolutionary selection genetics. We've made corn, we've made grains, we've made dairy, we've made pets. I mean, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, dogs all looked the same. Now they look very different, okay? So we have been doing this sort of slowly but surely. Now, in the last 20 years or so, we've begun to read the genome and actually be able to see the code that's in the genome. we've been reading our genomes and lice genomes. We've been reading the genomes of corn and reading the genomes of plants and animals. We can see defects and predispositions now in some cases. We can identify mutations, detecting pathogens, for example, identifying susceptibilities in one sort or another. What we're doing now with CRISPR and other things is we're seizing the steering wheel of evolution. We're suddenly going to start driving the evolution car ourselves. Okay? We can now write the genome. I don't know if you've seen this, but a child who was conceived and found genetically to be cystic fibrosis, having cystic fibrosis, which is a monogenic mutation, has been cured while he was a fetus inside the mother's uterus. Okay? We're moving toward that period. We're moving toward a time where we can genetically alter people and fix small genetic changes in one sort or another. It's going to be enormously powerful. It's also, quite frankly, very challenging. There are 4 ways right now to do it, but there's going to be more right now. And the CRISPR is the one that's the cheapest. This is the one that is actually becoming the easiest one to do. There are major ethical questions around this. Are we going to have designer babies? Am I going to be able to program my wife so that she has a blonde-haired, tall baby? Okay, that's a dangerous issue. Okay, and so there are serious ethical issues in this area. We can have gene drives, things that can actually change the genetics for a whole class of animals, and they get loose. All of a sudden, we can find that all apple trees die, or something like that. There's a lot of dangerous things that we can do with this. It's basically the law of unforeseen consequences, which I think has frankly now become the most important law there is. The law of unforeseen consequences is what are the things that are going to happen that we hadn't thought of. So, where will these technologies make a difference and impact? In the human germline, obviously correcting genetic birth defects, which I've already mentioned. In mutations during life, like cancer and aging, like neurodegenerative or autoimmune diseases. In food-related products, we're going to be able to make animals and plants that maybe produce a little bit better milk, or we've already been breeding this for a long time, but we'll be able to produce, for example, a cow that produces milk that has extra vitamins in it, or something like that, okay, so that people are healthier by drinking milk. Insect, vector control, all kinds of things are going to happen. And frankly, I think we're going to start actually producing custom bacteria. I've already invested in a company that produced custom bacteria that did work for us, not for itself, okay? I was very fortunate I sold it for $500 million at Roche, so it was a very good outcome. And we're going to eventually be able to potentially make synthetic organisms that do what we want them to do, that do things for us. So, I'm going to conclude with this. I mean, with this vast complexity of life and the power of this technology, where are we going? It's going to be a very interesting next 50 years. Because between artificial intelligence and the ability to modify genomes, we are going to have confront some very big issues, maybe some unexpected issues.